Is it even possible that a tee can make you hit the ball further and straighter? Well, that's the claims around the 10-degree tee. So is this shot longer and straighter because of a tee that costs £1 each? Or is this just another gimmick aimed at golfers looking for a quick fix? Well, let's find out. So I've put this tee through its paces on the launch monitor at average golfer speed and at my speed. And I've also taken it out on the golf course to hit some shots in the real world to see if I can see any difference in using the 10-degree tee as opposed to a normal tee. So let's look at this tee in a little bit more detail. Let's then analyze the data, and stay tuned to later in the video because I'm going to try something unusual with this tee just to really test its claims. Right, so first off, let's have a little bit of a look at this packaging, and I'll pop a bigger version up on the screen for you. But basically, this packaging is making some big claims. It's claiming that these tees reduce friction, that they increase ball speed, and that they reduce the rotation of the ball. So to be fair, the packaging is rather nice and premium, but it should be, considering this box of 10 tees cost me around £10 in UK money. Right, so let's then have a look at the individual tee, and I'll pop a slightly bigger one just up on the screen here so it's clear for you. But the first thing you'll notice is this pointy out bit with an arrow on it. And according to the instructions, to make this tee work for you, you have to point this arrow towards your playing direction, or in other words, the target that you're aiming at. So I had a look at the rules of golf around golf tees, and yes, there are rules around golf tees, and we go to rule 6.1, and I was particularly interested in bullet point 2, and I'll pop it up on the screen here so as you get it word for word. But basically it says that a tee shouldn't be manufactured or designed to point along the line of play. So I think it's pretty fair to say that you shouldn't be using this tee in competition. Right, so the other thing we can notice about this tee is the way that the cradle where the ball sits is shaped. Now this tee is specifically designed where if you have the tee straight, the ball just falls off of it. And the idea is that you're supposed to angle the tee at around 10 degrees, and that way the ball sits on it. And if I was hitting the ball in this direction, you can see how that's angled. And I'll also just pop up a few setup shots of this so as you can see that clearly. Right, so we've seen now about the box, the tee, the claims. Let's head outside and let's hit some golf balls with normal tees and with the 10-degree tee. And then let's come back and let's have a look and see if the data shows anything. Right, well, I hope you enjoyed seeing some of those shots, and you can see I did a test at average golfer speed with both tees, and also I used the 10-degree tee, and again at both speeds. Now, the first thing I will say is I've got no idea how you would actually measure that you're putting this tee in at 10 degrees to the ground. Now, I pretty much feel that I had it at varying angles during my test, so it's interesting that they're specifically suggesting 10 degrees, but I felt you could lean it back quite a significant amount more than that and the ball would still sit on it quite comfortably. Right, so let's now head over and have a look at the data of the shots I gathered with both of these tees at both of those swing speeds. Right, so first off, let's just pop up on the screen here the data from average golfer speed with a normal tee. Now, I've had a check of this data against some of the ball testing videos that I've done, just to correlate that I was creating a roughly the same sort of ball speed, club speed, distance, etc. And it's clearly within the range. So I'm happy that the data that I produced of a normal tee is representative of what I would expect to see. So now then, underneath that, let's pop up the 10-degree tee data. So first off, if we look at club head speed, you'll see that I was actually swinging the club 1 mile an hour faster with the normal tee. So that does mean that we would expect to see a little bit more ball speed with those shots. However, I was quite surprised to see that the difference in the ball speed was 3 miles an hour. I would have expected it to have been more like 1.5 to 2. So spin rate was around 100 RPM difference. And fun enough, it was in favour of the normal tee. Now, if we do look at vertical launch, we can see a difference here. We can see that the normal tee was launching at 10.8 degrees, but the 10-degree tee was launching at 12.5 degrees. Now, that's quite interesting, the fact that we were getting a higher launch, but what we're going to do is we're going to just put a pin in that for the moment, because I want to discuss that in a little bit more detail after we've had a look at a bit more of the data. With carry distances of 211 yards and 211.4 yards, we don't appear to be creating any more ball speed or any more distance with the 10-degree tee than we are with a normal tee at average golfer's speed. Right, so let's now check the claims about accuracy. And I'm just going to pop the 2 dispersion charts up on the screen here. And yes, you could say that with the 10-degree tee, the dispersion front to back was slightly tighter. There's certainly no real difference in the dispersion left to right. Right, so it appears at average golfer speed, we're not really seeing any massive benefit of using the 10-degree tee. But what's it like as we get into a faster swing speed? And also, don't forget to stay tuned to the video, because I am going to do something different with this 10-degree tee and the results may surprise you. Right, so if we pop the data up there for both of the tees at my normal playing speed, you can see that the club head speed and the ball speed correlate and are relative to each other. So it's really difficult to say, even at faster speed, that the 10-degree tee is capable of creating more ball speed. Right, so if we have a look at spin numbers here, you can see they're so close together that it's really not going to make that much difference. However, again, if we do look at vertical launch, you can see that the 10-degree tee was launching around 2 degrees higher than my normal tee. So those launch numbers are important, but I think we want to discuss that again a little bit more after we've just run through the rest of these numbers. And we can see that actually the 10-degree tee at my speed was carrying around about 3 yards further with slightly less club and ball speed. So let's now pop up the dispersion data from both of these tees, and you can see quite clearly that the 10-degree tee's dispersion is significantly better. Now, I'm not necessarily putting that down to the tee. The dispersion that I put up there under a normal tee is bad even for me. So I'm kind of convinced that if I was to redo this test, I would probably find that either the dispersion was significantly closer together or could possibly flip either way, dependent on how well I was swinging it over that set of 5, 10, 15, 20 shots. But I don't think that the difference in the dispersion is really based down to the tee. I just wasn't very good at hitting it in the right direction when I was doing the normal tee testing. Right, so let's now quickly talk a little bit more about these launch numbers before I show you the further testing that I did on this tee that may surprise you. So after hitting some shots and seeing these results, I realised that obviously the 10-degree tee was actually launching the ball higher, and I wanted to really confirm whether this was down to the tee, the angle that it was set, or what was actually causing the difference in this launch and this increase, which at my speed especially appeared to give me a couple of extra yards of distance. So the first thing I noted when I had a look at this was actually how long the 10-degree tee is in comparison to the normal tee that I would use. You can see that's a good centimetre, maybe centimetre and a half, actually longer in length. And I think subconsciously what actually happened was I was actually teeing the ball up slightly higher with the 10-degree tee purely because it was longer in length. Now, teeing the ball up or down can significantly have an impact in distance, and I created a video where I discussed this and showed the benefits of actually teeing the ball up slightly higher for most golfers, and you can check that out if you wish. But I think that part of the launch that we were seeing is purely down to the fact that I ended up teeing the 10-degree tee up slightly higher, therefore hitting it slightly above centre, therefore increasing the loft of the driver and actually increasing the launch. So in the interest of making sure my testing is really thorough, and I hope this is something that you get from these videos, I decided I was then going to go back and hit just a few shots with my normal tee, but I was going to tee it up a little bit higher. Let's pop that data now up there under the other data, and you'll see that my launch conditions went up, and my launch went up to 11 degrees, and my carry actually went up to 265 yards. So I firmly believe that the reason that I was getting a higher launch with the 10-degree tee was purely because it was teeing the ball up slightly higher. So I think it's really difficult to say that this tee increases ball speed, reduces spin, and hits the ball further. I think the reason I got the slightly different launch conditions was purely because I was just teeing this ball up higher. And you can tee any tee up slightly higher if you want to adjust your launch conditions either up or down. Now, the only other thing I did say in this video was I wanted to really properly test this tee. And the first thing I did was, instead of having the arrow pointing in the direction of the target and the tee leaning backwards that way, I wanted to rotate it 180 degrees. So as now the arrow was facing away from my target and the tee was leaning forward. So my theory here was that if this tee is obviously designed to be set in a certain orientation, if I put it into a different orientation, then that fundamentally must change the characteristics of the shot that I'm creating. So first off, let's pop the original 10-degree tee data up on the screen here, and that was with the orientation of the tee pointing in the correct direction. And now underneath it, let's put the data up there of the tee facing what would technically be backwards. Right, so although my club head speed and ball speed were slightly slower, by this time I'd hit an awful lot of drivers and I was pretty knackered, you can see that all of the other figures basically just correlate to each other. So interestingly, setting this tee up backwards appears to have had very, very little impact on its performance. Right, so let's now just pop the traces up of the few shots I hit with the tee facing backwards, just so as you can see that they were going in roughly the right direction. Right, so I really thought, oh, I might be onto something quite interesting here, and can I actually make this tee do anything different? So my next test was then basically to have the tee facing sideways. So I did some shots with the arrow facing away from my body, and then I also turned it round and had it with the arrow facing my body. Now, would this create more side spin? Would it create less accuracy? Would it make any changes to the shots that I was hitting? Right, so let's pop the original data from the 10-degree tee facing in its correct orientation up on the screen. And now let's add underneath it the data for the tee that was set up, basically leaning sideways away from me and leaning sideways towards me. And we can see, with the exception of an odd yard of difference in carry distance, there was actually no real difference in what the ball was doing based on the orientation of this tee. And again, let's just pop some data up there so as you can see my dispersion patterns for the tee when it was facing sideways. So what can we conclude from this thorough test? Well, I think it's difficult to say that this tee is actually going to make you hit it further or straighter or provide any performance benefit over a normal tee. And even if it did, I think that would be significantly overridden by human error with regards to strike and accuracy. I think the only other thing we can draw from this is that perhaps there is a benefit in teeing the ball up a little bit higher than you normally do to help you just increase your launch conditions, which will get the ball up in the air a little bit more and may help to increase carry distance. I think the big shock for me though was the fact that although this tee clearly is marked and you're told to set it up in a specific direction, I found that the orientation of this tee really made absolutely no difference to its performance. This is the fundamental reason why I would suggest that you just continue buying your normally priced tees and probably not to worry about spending £1 per tee. Ultimately, there doesn't appear to be any real performance benefit from this tee, and let's face it, with the way golf is, spending more money on a tee was probably never likely to make you play better golf. If you've enjoyed this video and found value in it, please make sure to leave a like. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any more data-driven content that's going to be coming your way. And make sure you check out this video. I really think you'll enjoy it. My name's Graham, and I'll catch you on the course soon.